Okay, it is time for the conclusion of Hell Yeah. And then at the end of the conclusion, I'm going to give you a book rating. But I think most of you who love to read like I do will already be wanting to find where you can get this book and read it. So here we go with page 294. It can't go anywhere, Travis. The excitement of the oil rig and whether it brings you in a gusher will always be in your blood. It's what drives you and makes you happy. You have wings. I have roots in the honky tonk, and they go really deep like an old oak tree. The two just don't mix. I'll chew on that a while and get back to you before we get home. But I believe a person can have wings and roots at the same time, he said. Are you sure, or are you just avoiding the inevitable? She said softly. I'm very sure, honey. Eat up. The wagon train leaves in a few minutes. You don't want to miss it. She didn't press the issue, but she didn't expect him to come up with anything profound on the trip to Mingus, either. He couldn't explain his feelings any more than she could hers. Page 298. Kathy patted her arm. Thank you, but all I got was a couple of names, and one of those has to be a nickname. They were Oscar and Duro. And my ex-fiancé hatched this idea. He was going to rush in and save me when my defenses were down. I was half-starved and almost dead. It was all a big plan to get me to go back to him so he could keep his job. He's been in a bunch of trouble with his boss, who is also his uncle. Evidently, he's got 6 months to settle down. Guess he thought that he could scare me into going back with him, kind of like a ride in on a white horse and save the princess so she'll believe anything you'll say and put up with anything you do. Well, start with him. With a little persuasion, he'll give up those other two clowns' full names. He likes the shack so much his sorry butt can sprint right back there and live forever. I'll expect the whole story at Jesse's on Sunday. Give me a beer and I'll go talk with Luther a game while I wait on Garrett and Angel. That Garrett is getting pretty damn good. He might even give Angel some competition in a few years. Kathy changed the subject. So you think they'll be together long? Honey, those two were made for each other. I don't know why they have the pretense of meeting here and then going to the ranch. She ought to just go from there to work. It would save a lot of time. Gotta admit, though, I like a game or two while they're flirting around with each other. Merle picked up the cue stick with one hand and held the beer with the other. Might as well get a quart of Coors ready for Luther. I'd take it to him, but my hands are full. When Luther reached the bar, Kathy set a mason jar in front of him. He grinned. It don't take you long to know what I like. I missed you, darling. I thought it was right strange that you and Travis was both gone at the same time, but then I heard about your cousin needing you, so I'm not giving up on that date just yet. Could I get a pitcher of whiskey and Coke down here? A lady asked from 10 feet away. Gotta go, Kathy said. I like that bucket of Coors and one of the Miller, another woman said. $2.98, $2.99, and $300. Larissa pushed the swinging door and set 2 buckets on the counter. I'm glad you're home. Things aren't the same around here without you. Thanks. You want to work tonight? Only if after closing we can sit down and have a visit, Larissa said. Kathy grimaced. That's the deal. Take it or leave it. Visit about what? Kathy asked. Where in the hell you been, really? And why Travis was gone at the same time? I'm nosy as hell and I want to know. So do I draw a beer or do I not? Larissa popped her hands on her hips. Deal. Kathy said she might as well tell the story one more time. It wasn't going to stay underneath the covers forever anyway. And while they were visiting, Larissa was going to answer some questions too. Good, I've been on pins and needles ever since Monday night when I came in here and found Jesse and Leroy in the tiz behind the bar. You should have seen the place. There wasn't any room to shake a booty without hitting someone else. Tinker didn't have to turn anyone away from the door, but it was a busy night, especially for a church night. At 10 minutes until 2, the jukebox was featuring Blake Shelton's I'll Just Hold On. The lyrics said something about a girl having a gypsy soul and that he didn't know why he was falling for her. You like this song? Larissa loaded the dishwasher and set the dial to start. It hits home pretty good right about now, Kathy said. When the song finished, Tinker unplugged the jukebox and pointed toward the clock. Oh man, it can't be 2 already, a woman said from the shadows where she had a biker cornered. We'll be open tomorrow at 8. Come on back then, Tinker said. The night was over. Travis was gone. Tears welled up from behind Kathy's eyelids, but she held them at bay. She couldn't cry. Should have followed her gut instead of letting her heart get in the way. Tinker set his empty cooler on the bar, tossed his cans into the big trash can, and checked both bathrooms before he left. See you tomorrow night. Larissa threw her rag on the bar, opened a long neck cord, and carried it to the table, where she propped her feet on an empty chair. Kathy did the same. So where were you? Larissa asked. Why did you move to Mangus? We'll get to that, but you go first. I had an ex named Brad Alton. He got mean and thought he could whip me on one night, and anyway he got in a few good licks before I came to my senses and fought back. Kathy said. She told the story of the umpteenth time. It had begun to feel like a fairy tale instead of reality, like it happened to another woman, and she was merely telling it after the fact. Ex-boyfriend or husband? Boyfriend, Kathy said. Was it cold in the shack? Larissa asked. Oh, yeah, and there were the rats the size of possums. Did you sleep with Travis? What's that got to do with anything? Kathy blushed. 300, 301, 302, 303. Guess you did. Okay, before we start on my story, I want you to promise that when you and Travis get together permanently, that I get first crack at buying the honky tonk from you. I told you from the first time I met you that this place is not for sale and never will be. It's mine, and I'm going to work until the day that I know, carry your dead body out, but in case you change your mind, I want it. I'll pay you double what Hayes offered when you signed a contract that says I will never ever sell it to him, Larissa says. Okay, if I ever sell it, which I won't, then you can have the first crack at the sale. Now, why are you in Mingus? It's a long story. I'm hungry. Let's go find all-night restaurant in Stevensville and have some breakfast while I tell you, Larissa said. Better idea. Let's go back to my apartment. Cook something. How about fettuccine alfredo and garlic toast? You cook? You don't? Kathy said. I'm learning. It's part of the Find Myself in Texas deal. I'm also going to put in the garden thing this spring. Know anything about that? Not a blessed thing other than put the seeds in the ground and hope like hell it rains. Kathy led the way back to her apartment, turning on lights and checking both bathrooms one more time on the way out. Nice place you got back here. Never figured it to look like this, Larissa said. Have a seat. Want a glass of tea while I cook? No, I'll just finish my beer. Can I help? I really am trying to learn. Kathy took a package of chicken breast from the freezer, and I'm going to thaw this in the microwave and cook it in a cube of butter. Real butter? Larissa asked. I like real butter. As little as you are, surely you don't have to be careful of calories and fat grams. Hell no, I could eat a whole cow and not gain a pound. I just want to get this right. I love Alfredo. Used to order it when... She paused. You don't have to tell me every single detail, but I want to know why in the hell you are in Mingus, Texas. With your background, it's plain as the nose on a big old hog that you came for money, so talk while I cook. The microwave bell dinged. Kathy removed the chicken, diced it into small pieces on a thick wooden cutting board while cubing the butter melted in a cast iron skillet. She raked the chicken off in the hot butter before Larissa started. I grew up in northern Oklahoma near Perry. My grandfather had money, and I was his only grandchild. It would put into a trust fund when he died to be given to me in monthly allotments till my 25th birthday, at which time they had to turn the whole 9 yards over to me. I was 8 years old when he died, and my mother was the trustee of my funds. She had gotten wild in her college days. I was the result of that. She married the boy, but it didn't last. Grandfather paid off when the divorce came down, and that's when my Indian blood comes from. Mother is redhead and would remind you of Jesse. She's still up around Perry. Kathy set the pot of boiling pat. Kathy set a pot on the back burner for the fettuccine noodles and buttered 4 pieces of thick sliced bread with garlic butter. That was 302, 303. Here's 304, 305. No, Mother travels. She has a house in Paris, France, not in Texas, one in Italy, a place in London. She's only 50 and looks 30, so there's plenty of men and excitement in her life. Anyone left up there? Just the house and a small staff that keeps it in order if Mother or I ever want to go home. It's over between Orlando and Perry, way back in the country. You'd never see it unless you were looking for it. And never get inside the gates without the right words, she said. Miss it? Can I set the whole table while you do that? Larissa asked. Are you avoiding the question? No, I don't miss the place. It's just stones and glass and lots of land. Home should be more, don't you think? Go on. Kathy slipped the noodles into the boiling water. Okay, I graduated from high school in Perry, went to OSU because it was close by. When I was a little girl, my mother traveled a lot, and I was a nanny and the house staff. I had a nanny and a house staff. Looking back, I think the people I went to school with thought I was part of those folks instead of the ones who owned the place. Anyway, when I was 21, Mother transferred the funds. I set out on a holy quest to find myself, kind of like a hippie, but with funds. Did you? Kathy asked. What? Find yourself. I'm 30 this summer. I think I'm close. Took you 9 years? It has. Where did you go to do it? Started with a trip around the world that took 5 years. I just didn't visit places. I lived in Egypt, Jerusalem, Russia, England, even a month in China, back in a remote area in a convent. She hesitated. And and in December I was back home in Paris, and nothing felt more right than anything it did in Cairo or Moscow. Christmas was just around the corner. My old nanny had put up a tree, and my mother had just sent presents. You know what's in small presents, Kathy? I'll tell you. Expensive jewelry. There it was, all coming together for me. Turkey dinner, presents, and no family or friends. My heart and my soul just wasn't satisfied. So I got out the map of the U.S. Actually, it's hanging on the wall in the library along with maps on every place in the world. So I didn't get it out, and I pulled it down and pinned the tail on a donkey with it. Picked up one of those tacks and that has a big plastic head on it. Shut my eyes tightly, decided to move wherever I stuck the pin. Good God, Mingus, Texas? You got it, honey. Lord, that smells good. Can you make that up in a hurry? It's almost done. So what did you do? Came down here, fought with myself, stayed in a motel in Stevensonville for a week, drove over here every day. It was horrible. I was just about to decide to go to Italy and spend a month with Mother, but something came saying that I'd be sorry to do so. So I drove through the whole damn town a dozen times daily. Finally, one day, a realtor was putting a sign on some property up there for a block from the post office. Stopped and asked about the house. It's a 2-bedroom built in the 30s. Sits on 4 lots. The old couple who were selling it had to go to a nursing home. There's a garden out back, a place for chickens, but I haven't got that brave yet. Stray cat came up. I adopted him. He's black and white, and that looks like that old Sylvester the cat in cartoons. Named him Stallone, and he's fitting in real well. That's 304, 305. Here comes 306 and 307. So how long are you really going to stay before you figure out that Mingus isn't where you left your soul in another life? Kathy asked. Larissa smiled. I already figured it out. I'm at home. You say that this week, but what about next week when you get really bored? So far, so good. I'm happy here. Even Mother says she hears it in my voice. I get bored some days, but there's always the honky tonk to look forward in the evenings, and when spring comes, I still start gardening, and I won't have time to get bored. Plus, you're going to sell me this place in a few months, and when my soul will be really at home. Kathy drained the noodles, added the creamy chicken mixture, quickly browned the toast in the oven, and set both on the table. Don't get your hopes up. You ever heard that old saying about not having wings and roots both? I heard it. I'm living proof. Larissa dipped deeply the skillet and loaded the plate. God, this is wonderful, and it didn't look so difficult to make. Nothing to it. Brown the chicken in butter, add a jar of already prepared Alfredo sauce from Walmart, then pour it over the cooked noodles. You can make this standing on your head and cross-eyed, so if Hayes Radnor ever came in here and offered you $1 million for your land and house to get to a toehold in the place, you wouldn't sell it? Kathy asked between bites. Honey, God could offer me the keys to his kingdom, and I wouldn't sell him my place to him. So what chance would Hayes Radnor have? I'm at peace, and I'm at home. I do not intend to sell. I'll fight Hayes Radnor until eternity dawns to keep Mingus out of his hands. He wants an amusement park. He can hustle his rich butt on down the highway to a different town. I'll buy the whole town right out from under him and not change a thing before I let him have it, Larissa said. Mingus? Kathy still couldn't believe that Larissa would want to live here forever. Imagine how I felt when I drove down here and saw it the first time. Like you falling off the edge of the world straight into the flaming bowels of hell? Kathy asked. That's about it. You must have felt the same way. Oh, yeah, I couldn't believe my cousin actually liked this place and wanted to be here. Took me about 6 weeks to stand still long enough for my roots to grow under my feet. Travis has the wings. I have the roots. It's like shaking up oil and water. They do fine for about a half an hour, then you separate out again, Kathy said. You got to figure that out for yourself. Can't no one else do it for you. Listen to your heart, and if it says Listen to your heart, and if it says for you to pull up roots and fly, then call me and I'll write you a check, Larissa said. That was 306, 307. Page 315. Kathy smiled through the pain in her heart. So do we? We do, don't we? Well, maybe you'll come to Alaska to see me. I'll call often and email you. We aren't going to lose touch, Kathy. I'll be back when Garrett and Angel get married. Do you know something I don't? No, but it'll happen. They're in love, he said hoarsely. She nodded toward the jukebox where Mark Chestnut was singing Old Country. The lyrics said that she used to want to climb the walls and had never been in love until Old Country came to town. You saying I should come around every now and then? He asked. I reckon it would be nice. When you leaving? In about 10 minutes. 10 minutes? The room spun in the psychedelic waves of color as she held onto the bar to keep from fainting. God almighty, she was going to fall to pieces right there in the honky tonk. Want to dance? He asked. Don't dance with customers, remember? I'll be at my folks for a couple of days, then I'll fly to Anchorage. Their gazes locked in the middle of bittersweet sparks. Mark's song played on the jukebox for the second time. Dancers were swaying to the music. A few were even kissing, some talking. Merle and Luther were in heated discussion over pool. Tinker kept watch over the whole bunch. Everything was completely normal, so why was Kathy's heart shattering like a glass window, breaking when a baseball hits it? Travis tossed back the last bit of his beer, leaned across the bar, and brushed a soft kiss across Kathy's lips. You are something special. She touched her lips. To hell with the rules. She pushed through the swinging doors and walked into his waiting arms. Dance with me one more time? He wrapped his arms around her waist, and she laid her face next to his chest. She had less than 4 minutes to make enough memories to last forever. Seconds ticked off that clock with each word and left her heart in pieces as the song came to an end. When it was over, he kissed her hard, just like he'd done on New Year's Eve. Hell yeah, she whispered. He laid his fingers on her lips. You got my cell phone number, and you've got mine. He looked deeply into her eyes, then walked out of the honky-tonk. Kathy watched until the door closed, then spun around and went back to drawing beers behind the bar. It was over. Severed quickly and abruptly. The pain had begun when he disappeared out into the night. The reality of him being out there and out of her life would come later. Well, you broke Rule 1, Amos said. Give me one of those martinis that Larissa says is so good, might as well celebrate being wrong. About what? Kathy said. Many things for many years. You're one hell of a lot more like Ruby than I figured, girl. You just might as well stay like that. She did until they carried her cold body out of here. Just remember that brag don't come free. It's costly. Amos, I don't know. I don't only know it, I feel it. Now, what are you wrong about other than my love life? Mostly we'll celebrate the fact that Travis was right when he said Angel was a damn fine petroleum engineer. She's going to be a big asset to my company. Now she and Garrett can set a date for their wedding. I'm going to leave the office where it is for a few months, then decide whether to put permanent office in Mingus or Gordon. We'll see which way the new findings take us. So when Maggie refused to come out to Mingus, she said that I could fire her before she lived in a place this small. She's got 2 little boys who have violin lessons, play soccer, and all those things. Anyway, there's a lady in my Dallas office who said she'd love a change of scenery, so she'll be starting Monday. Her name is Tessa. I expect she'll be in and out of the honky-tonk since she likes to dance. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure that the honky-tonk being this close is what's bringing her to the area. She'll be moving into the trailer. Tomorrow can be your last day, and you can go back to your old routine. Sounds good to me. Amos sipped the martini. Larissa was right. This is a good martini. That was 316, 317. Here comes 318, 319, and 320. Hey, could I get a picture of Coors down here? A man waved from behind 2 ranchers who'd been sitting at one of the bar most of the evening. Gotta go, Kathy said. Bonus will be attached to your paycheck tomorrow night, Amos called out. Angel had Garrett by the hand and was dragging him to the bar when Kathy had time to look up again. Congratulate us, Kathy. Garrett just proposed to me. We haven't even called our parents yet. Look. She hung her hand over the bar, and the light picked up the sparkle on the diamond ring. Kathy set 2 beers on the bar. These are on the house, and congratulations, and the ring is gorgeous. Can we have the wedding here in June? At the honky-tonk? Kathy asked. It's where we met, and it'll be romantic, Angel said. Of course you can, darling. By then I'll own the honky tonk, and it'll be a wonderful advertisement, Larissa answered. You will not, Kathy said. Of course I will, but you'd let them use it for a wedding anyway. It's a perfect place, lots of parking, bar for drinks, bathrooms, and lots of room for dancing. I love it, Larissa said. Thanks, we'll pay for it. Mama will have it decorated with acres of tulle and roses, Angel said. You are welcome, but it'll have to be morning or afternoon. Can't see a wedding with this kind of crowd, and you won't pay for the use of the tonk. It'll be a wonderful excuse to get Daisy and Jared to come visit, Kathy said. Angel laughed and pulled Garrett back to the dance floor for another slow dance. Larissa threw her arm around Kathy's shoulder. Feeling it, aren't you? Yes, I am, Kathy said. Go after him. I can't. It hurts. But I can't clip his wings. I don't want to change him, and I can't be anything other than what I am. I'll get over it, Kathy said. I don't think so, darling, but who am I to give advice? I'm just now finding myself. That was page 318, 319. Here comes 320, 321. Angel was surprised to see her when she breezed through the office at 9 o'clock. It's noon, she said, glancing at the clock. I wanted to get completely caught up. She doesn't need to come into a mess, Kathy said. Travis made it home all right. He called this morning, left a message on my phone, Angel said. That's good, Kathy said. I thought you two would end up together. I never seen him so taken with anyone. There's a lot of distance between Alaska and the honky tonk. So that's it? I'll miss having you here. They say Tessa is good, but you are like family. Thanks, Kathy said. She wanted to ask Angel what she meant by that comment, but about that was it, but was afraid the answer would only make her weepy again. She had to use cold compresses on her eyes that morning to get the swelling down after a 2-box tissue night. Well, I'm off to make Amos and Jesse lots of money, and we're ready now to buy some mineral leases to the other properties. Want us to drill in the honky-tonk parking lot? Might be a cute little conversation piece to have the black bumper right out there. No, thanks. My insurance would be out the roof trying to cover the drunk cowboys riding the walking beam like a bull, Kathy said. That was 320, 321. Here comes 322. Easy over or omelets? Myrna asked. Easy over. Is that pancake better? Yes, it is. Why didn't you bring that pretty Kathy woman with you? I liked her better than any of those other ones you drug in here before. And she's an Arkansas born and raised girl. You can't go wrong there. Travis poured the water into over a tea bag. She runs a beer joint, Myrna. So there's all beer joints all over the world. The way I hear it is if two people get together and want to build them a town, first thing they do is put up a church, and right after that they get a place to get saved, sanctified, and dehorned. They build a beer joint. That way they have reason for saving and dehorning. She could run a beer joint anywhere your oil business takes you, and that ain't no big deal. It is to her. She loves the honky-tonk. Looked to me like she loved you when she looked at you with them funny-looking blue eyes. Sometimes love ain't enough, Travis said. Huh. Myrna snorted. Page 324 and 325. Travis exercised horses all day on Saturday. The whole family would be in for supper that night so they could be together again before he flew to Alaska. Chances were it would be the summer before he had time to come home, and then everything would be fizzled up with Angel and Garrett's wedding. The day had produced entirely too many hours to think about Kathy. He'd gone over every single detail from the time he first kissed her to the last kiss right after the dance. What would he have done differently? If he could go back and redo any moment, what would it be? Not one thing other than begging her to leave the honky-tonk and go with me. She said in the hotel that night that I'd be happy for a couple of weeks and then I'd resent her. Well, that's why I didn't ask her to leave her life. I'm afraid she'd resent me, and I'd rather hurt now than later. I called her once, and it was so awkward, and I hurt so bad, I can't do it again. If I hear her voice next time, the first words out of my mouth would be, I love you, and she doesn't need to hear that, he whispered to the horse. Hey, you going to talk to yourself all day or come in and visit? Emma asked from the stall door. And where's Kathy? I liked her, Travis. Is she going to join you here? I don't think so. I was unselfish. I couldn't ask her to leave her beer joint. She might have done it, but she'd hate me later on. Is everyone else in there? He hung up the brush and threw a blanket over the horse's back. You were changing the subject, and everyone isn't here, Travis. Unless you tell her how you feel, she won't know. She can't read your mind, but as your youngest and, of course, most favorite sister, I can sure read your eyes. You are in love, and you are miserable. Let's talk about something else. Talking about Kathy hurts too bad. He slung an arm over her shoulder and led her out of the stables towards the house. That was page 324, 325. Here comes 326 and 327. Kathy put in the movie Lucky 7, set a bowl of popcorn between her and Daisy on Sunday night. Daisy and Jared had flown down earlier that evening. Jared was out on the ranch where he and Garrett were talking cattle. Daisy had come into Mingus to spend the evening with Kathy. I want to hear the whole story, beginning to end, Daisy said. Start with the time he first kissed you on New Year's. But you already know that. Tell it again. I want to hear it while I look at you. But I can't tell it and watch the movie both. Daisy picked the remote and turned the movie off. We can watch that another time. This has to do with your life and your heart. Talk, cousin. Surely telling the whole thing, time and time again, would eventually exorcise it from her heart. But it didn't. When she got to the part about the boat and seeing Travis, the dam let loose, and she told the rest through tears. She didn't even leave out the part about him being the best dam lover in the world, or how the vibes between them set the 2 motels and bedroom out in the trailer on fire. You love him, Daisy said. I didn't say that. You don't have to say it. It's written in your misery. Well, I'll have to learn not to love him. Maybe that's what happened to Ruby Lee. She fell in love with the wrong man, and the honky tonk became her love to replace him. Kathy let the tears flow freely. Daisy handed her a tissue. She never said that, but it makes sense. But you are not Ruby Lee. You are Kathy Odell, and you can do something about this. Pick up the phone and call him. I can't. Remember that old saying about if you love something, you have to let it go? If it comes back, then I can't remember the rest, she said. Daisy hugged her as she tried to dissolve the pain with tears. Ooh. That was page 326 and 327, moving down to 327, middle page. Kathy and Daisy stood in front of the nursery window with Jim Bob and stared at the 8-pound, red-haired baby girl in the bassinet. The baby had been born on Sunday morning, and the old honky-tonk crew gave the walkers time to enjoy her on a day before descending upon the hospital on Monday like a swarm of bees. You want one of them kind? Kathy asked Daisy. I do, but I won't complain if it's a boy, Daisy said. Jim Bob threw a loose arm around them both. Ain't she beautiful? Wasn't for that red hair, she'd look just like her gorgeous mama. I'm already in love with her, and I can hold her in one hand almost. Can you imagine how much I'll love her a year, or how much it's going to hurt when she leaves home? Kathy could imagine well. In the days that Travis had been gone, she paced the floor, listened to old country music, cried until her eyes were swollen, and lost 5 pounds because food gagged her. He called out once, but the conversation was stilled, and neither of them could say the words that lay between them like barbed wire fence. Just enjoy her every day, Daisy said. 326, 327, here comes 328, 329. Kathy thought about enjoying her days with Travis. She'd enjoyed the banter, the flirting, working together, all of it up, including that last dance. Most of all, she enjoyed snuggling in his arms and being with him, and the soft, warm glow that wrapped them up together like a cocoon, and telling him all about her day, then listening to him talk all about his. Sharing not only their bodies, but emotions and feelings. She missed him, not only as her lover, but also missed him as her best friend. Hey, where is she? I heard that she has red hair, Merle called out as she and Angel came down the hall to the nursery. Is it going to be curly? Angel asked as they peered through the window at the chubby little baby girl swaddled up in a pink blanket. Looks like it could be, Merle said. Ain't she cute? When are you and Garrett going to make one of them for me to spoil? 9 months after the wedding vows, if I have anything to say about it, Angel said. Daisy threw an arm around Kathy's waist, looking at them from a distance. No one would believe they were cousins. Daisy was shorter and had long hair, and her Indian mother had given her a face with high cheekbones and angles. Kathy's mother had been tall, blonde, and she dipped into the gene pool. Up close it wasn't difficult to believe they were kinfolk because they shared the blue-gray eyes inherited from their fathers, who had been brothers. You ready? Honky Tonk opens in an hour, Daisy said. I am. She's beautiful, Jim Bob, Kathy said. The sun was bright and the birds were singing when they walked out of the hospital. Spring was definitely on the way, Larissa thought, and seed catalogs to the honky tonk had been pouring over them for after hours. Daisy fastened the seatbelt in the red caddy. I remember the first time I saw this car. I was sitting in the parking lot at the smokestack with a busted radiator. Ruby Lee drove up in this and bought my dinner. She offered me a job. I kept it 7 more years until before Jared walked out into my life. More like collided into your life, Kathy reminded her. You got that right. One minute I was taking a tray back to the bar, and the next I was flat on the floor with him on top of me. I understand you got into trouble taking a tray back to the bar, too. Maybe that's the curse or the omen, Daisy said. Started to say Daisy asked. Could be, Kathy swallowed. He'll do a romp every so often when he comes to town. Remember that Mark Chestnut song about when a cowboy called Old Country came to town? Remember it says that she never loved it at all until Old Country came to town? Daisy nodded. You satisfied with that? He's still flying, and I put down roots. You ever been to a tree nursery? Daisy asked. What's that got to do with anything? They transplant those big old trees, and they don't die. I thought I'd die without my security blanket, which was the honky tonk. Sometimes I still get the itch to bartend. When I do, Jared takes me to this little dive up there in Payne County, and I get a taste of loud country music and dancing. It's been 2 months, and now since the last time the urges are coming around less and less. Kathy started the engine and drove north toward Mingus. I can't do it, and besides, Jared asked you to marry him. Travis danced with me and walked out the door without looking back. Did you call out to him? God, girl, I went out to the ranch in the worst get-up in the world. My house shoes didn't even match. I told Jared exactly how I felt. Travis knows. Does he, Daisy asked, or does he think that you'll never leave the honky tonk? That was page 328, 329, and here comes the bottom of 330. Travis flew to Dallas. He boarded the 2:30 flight to Portland, Oregon, where he had a 2-hour layover, then the 8-hour flight to Anchorage. An elderly gentleman with gray hair and a thin mustache sat down next to him. He wore a 3-piece suit and a red and white striped tie. What's your name, son? Did you just come from a funeral? I'm Travis Henry, on my way to Anchorage, Alaska. Been waiting to live there my whole life, and no, I didn't just come from a funeral. I'm Mason Albertson. I'm on my way home to Houston. Been visiting with my grandchildren. Had a wedding today and didn't have time to change from the monkey suit into my jeans before the flight. I see you're a cowboy by them jeans and boots. What in the hell you going to do in Alaska, son? Look on your face says you want to stay right here. I'm a petroleum engineer. I sniff out places to drill for oil. Ain't your nose any good in warmer country? Mason asked. It could be. Guess it takes all kinds to make up this world. Some of us stay where there are hurricanes and others take chances. Some of us live in Tornado Alley and wouldn't move there if it was a class 5 whirlwind coming right at us. Then there's those like you out there hunting an adventure, Mason said. How many grandchildren you have? Travis said, to try to change the subject. 8 grands, 16 great-grands, 1 great-great-grand. I'm 85 years old. My wife died 5 years ago. She'd like to have the wedding today. She'd like getting all dolled up, stepping out of town. The woman loved to do the 2-step, and I believe she'd have left me for Hank Williams if he'd lived long enough, and she could have gotten a chance at him. Pretty as she was, he might have just given up drinking for her. I was a lucky man. Sounds like you had a nice family, Travis said. I do, and I did. Had the best of both worlds. When Gracie was alive, I was king of the mountain. Now I'm all alone with my memories, but let me tell you, they're fine memories. Mason said, You married? Travis shook his head. No, sir. What's her name? Who? Mason poked him on the arm. You know who, the one you let get away back here lately. What's her name? What makes you think I let one get away? Son, your face is a picture of sadness, and you tell me you are off on an adventure, so it ought to be happy as hell. Only a woman could put that hurt in your eyes, so you're about to make a mistake. Alaska is too damn far from Texas. That's 330, 331. Here comes 332, 333. Kathy. Her name is Kathy. Then why ain't she going with you? Travis looked out the window and so long that Mason figured he wasn't going to answer the question. She owns a beer joint in a little town. She loves it. She says she's not ever going to leave it, Travis said without looking back. You ask her? Travis shook his head. How'd you know that she won't leave it if you don't ask her? Maybe she didn't plan on leaving it until you came along. Maybe she changed her mind, but she's too much of a lady to ask you to take her with you. Maybe she wants you to stay close, but rather than running off to dig up frozen dirt in Alaska," Mason said. "I didn't have to ask. I know the answer," Travis said. "Young folks today sure are different than we were. We wanted an answer. We asked questions. We didn't sit around looking at the world like it was about to come to end." Mason said, "I'm going to take a nap. If I don't hear the captain tell us to buckle up for landing, you wake me up." Travis nodded. Mason was wide awake when they landed. When they were off the plane and everyone was meeting someone in the rush, Mason sat down in the nearest chair. "My daughter's coming to get me. She ain't never been on time for anything in her whole life. I reckon she'll be late for her own funeral. You got to rush or get to a few minutes to spare. I got 2 hours. You want a cup of coffee? I'll go over there at the McDonald's place and grab us a couple." Travis said, "And 2 of them little apple pies?" Mason asked. "You got it." Travis didn't have to wait in line. He gave the girl the order and took the money. It reminded him of filling a bucket of bottles of beer and hurriedly making change so he could move on to the next customer. He carried the coffee and the pies to the seats where Mason had chosen, and they ate and sipped their coffee while they watched people hurrying from one place to another. "So what does this Kathy look like?" "Classy. 6 feet tall, blonde, pretty blue eyes, the color of steel, and they looked right into my soul. She was kidnapped a few weeks ago," Travis said. "Tell me about it. Old man like me likes to hear stories." Mason finished his pie and sipped his coffee. Travis told him the story, and Mason slapped his leg and golfed about the part of putting the curse in Oscar and Duroc. "Then she marched into the place where her ex-boyfriend works and knocked the hell out of him, then walked out as classy as she walked in." Mason frowned. "And you let a woman with that much spunk get away from you? Man, you got empty space that should be filled with brain cells. How'd you ever get to be a hot-shot oilman anyway?" A tall, dark-haired woman touched Mason's on the shoulder. "Daddy, I'm sorry I'm late." "No, you ain't. If it was you, you'd be on time. Besides, if only been on time, I would have missed the best story I heard in years. Travis, this is my daughter, Mary Lynn. This is my new friend, who might be the dumbest man on earth, Travis." Mary Lynn laughed nervously. He was always picking up a new friend, parting him for calling you dumb. "He's probably right." Travis' tone was filled with gloom. "You don't have to keep that title. You can give it away if you want. Thanks for the coffee, the story, and the pie. And enjoy Alaska," Mason said as Mary Lynn led him away. 3:32, 3:33, and here comes 3:34. Travis checked his watch every 15 minutes and was ready to board right about time when he heard an announcement that said this flight had been delayed for 30 minutes. Was it an omen? Another half hour for him to change his mind. At 5 o'clock, a lady in uniform appeared at the desk, and an announcement was made for passengers with small children and those who had handicap to board first. Travis waited until she called the rest of the passengers. He shut his eyes and saw Kathy in those flannel pajamas in the hotel in Jefferson, Texas. He took a deep breath, caught a whiff of her perfume. He'd take the memories with him and hoped that they would fade in a few years. He boarded the plane. No one sat next to him, so he wouldn't have to listen to Mason telling him that he was making a big mistake, and that was definitely an omen that what he was doing was the right thing. He buckled up and waited for the captain's voice over the speaker. "I'm sorry, but there's been a complication. We'll be getting off of this plane in an hour. We'll board another jet. Sorry for the inconvenience," he said. Travis took his carry-on bag and overhead and went back out to wait another hour. He bought another pie and a cup of coffee at the McDonald's and sat in the corner and away from everyone who might want to talk to him. Out of going. Kathy and Daisy worked behind the bar together that night. Jared sat at the end of the table on what had been his favorite bar stool back when he was falling in love with Daisy. It was still hard for him to believe that Daisy had given up her precious beer joint and married him. The first guitar licks from the jukebox caused several women to yell, "Hell yeah," as they jumped up and hurriedly line danced. Daisy yelled with the rest of the crowd when Gretchen yelled for a big hell yeah from the redneck girls like her. "You still got your Christmas lights on like Gretchen Wilson sings about in that song?" Kathy asked. "You bet I do, and I'll plug 'em in whenever I want to," Daisy said. "Remember what you said on my wedding day when I gave you the motorcycle?" "I said hell yeah," Kathy said. "You ever going to make that be that happy again?" Kathy shook her head. The dancers were thirsty after a couple more fast songs, and people hit the bar for buckets of beer and pitchers. Kathy noticed that they were down to their last tray. "I'm going to gather up trays and be back in a minute," she told Daisy. She made it to the middle of the dance floor when Elvis started singing "I Can't Help Falling in Love with You." She shut her eyes and swayed to the music, remembering the night that when she danced with Travis after hours. When she opened, he was coming right at her. His eyes locked with hers. She blinked a dozen times, but every time she opened them, he was still there. If the fool didn't stop, he was going to plow right into her. Maybe he was just an apparition like she'd seen so many times the past few days, just a hologram that would walk away or right through her and keep going. 3:35, 3:34, 3:35, and here comes 3:36. He stopped inches from her. Every nerve ached to lean forward and feel her heartbeat, touch her lips, push that strand of blonde hair back from her cheek. He looked deeply into her eyes and saw his future all the way to the end of his life. She was afraid to breathe for fear that he would disappear, but she had to know if he was real. She wrapped an arm around his neck and touched the curls on his neck, and they felt real. She took a step forward and pulled his lips to hers for a long, hard, passionate kiss, which left no doubt that Travis was not an apparition. When the kiss ended, he looped both their hands around her waist and began to two-step to the music, singing the words softly in her ear as they danced. Tinker made his way over to the jukebox and plugged it for the minute after the song ended, then swiftly plugged it back in so whatever song had been brought were erased. He quickly fed it money into the slot and replayed Elvis's song twice more. Travis winked at him and kept dancing. Everyone in this place made a circle around the couple, and Elvis's voice was the only one heard in that honky tonk that evening as two hearts melted together. And I thought I already had this open. I apologize. When Travis's last words were smug and the last piano note faded, Travis Henry dropped down on one knee and looked right up at Kathy. "Will you marry me, Kathy Odell? I don't want to live without you." He raised his hand, and there was a diamond engagement ring sparkling on the first knuckle of his pinky finger. "Hell yeah," she whispered. That was page 336. We got 3 more pages to go. And I need to open this bottle of water so I don't get hoarse, which is happening. Drank that a little too quick. It's flavored fruit water. Peach. Anyway. Amos leaned back in the chair in his Dallas office the next morning. "Well, damn it, you two took long enough to figure things out. Sit down and let's talk through. For a while I thought I was going to have to bring that engineer home from Alaska." "Why'd you send me if you already had someone there?" Travis asked. "To see if you really leave Kathy. If you did leave, then you didn't deserve her. And to see if you came back, if she'd leave the honky tonk. From the look on your faces, that ring on your finger, Kathy, I expect that you are." She smiled. "Yes, I am. Larissa's buying it. Can't sell it to Amos. That would be like taking money from my child, and I'm giving it to her just like Daisy gave it to me." Amos nodded seriously. "Not a very good business deal, but I can understand Ruby would like that. Now let's get down to business." "I'll resign if it make it easier," Travis offered. "Hell, son, I ain't looking to fire you. That'd be cutting my right arm off. What I'm thinking is this. I've got a little office in Shamrock, Texas. My office manager's retiring in a month. You ready to settle down?" Travis nodded. "Is there a beer joint close by for sales that we're going to have to build, or one for Kathy to run?" "Kathy?" Amos asked. 337, 338. "That office got room for an accountant. I reckon I'd best be satisfied with that cowboy to dance with me around a honky-tonk the floor once in a while. I wouldn't have one to own." Travis squeezed her hand. "You can own one if you want. I'm not a bit ashamed to say my wife is a bartender. Hell, I'll even help you run it after hours. I think I'd just as soon close up shop after 5 and have you all to myself after that," she said. "Okay, then, here's the deal. You both are hired to run my Shamrock office. Get in there, get your feet good and wet. I'll sell it to you in 1 year if you like the area. If not, I'll move you to another place until you find one that you do like." "Why would you do that?" Kathy asked. "Ruby Lee should have married me, and if she had, you and Daisy would have been my children. You both have her spirit. Travis is already like a son. You are getting your inheritance while I'm still alive until after I die," he said. "Thank you, sir," Travis said. Kathy jumped up and hugged Amos. Tears were running down her cheeks and wetting his shirt collar. "And you'll walk me down the aisle like you did Daisy?" "Of course I will, in the honky tonk. Hell yeah!" They were married 2 weeks later, with all the old crowd and the new, just like the past and the future, blending together. Chigger and Jim Baum, along with the rest of the Walker clan, and Chigger's mother, who declared that she had something to do with Kathy and Travis finding each other. The rig crew was there, and Tessa, the office lady, who was already a regular at the honky tonk. Daisy and Jared flew down in the McElroy plane. Larissa insisted that she was taking over the bar the very next day. Daisy, Larissa, Kathy waited in the apartment for Amos to come in and tell them that it was time to begin the ceremony. Larissa and Daisy both wore bright yellow satin gowns and carried a single calla lily tied with a long yellow ribbon. They sat at the kitchen table while Kathy paced the floor. "I can't believe that I'm a bridesmaid," Larissa said. Daisy smiled. "I can believe that I am. The only thing that surprises me is that it happened so quick. Took me 7 years. Kathy caught my bouquet, and I knew that I'd get to stand up with her someday." Kathy stopped at the table. "I didn't catch the damn thing. You gave it to me." "And it worked?" Larissa held up her hands. "Don't you dare throw yours at me. I've found my happiness right here in Mingus in this bar, and I'm not leaving it for any man. Which reminds me, I've got something for you. It's in the suitcase in a big manila envelope." "What is it?" "You couldn't sell me the honky tonk because it was your baby. Well, your wedding present is the old, beautiful, restored house in Shamrock, not too far from the office. I didn't figure y'all would want a staff or grounds so big that you'd have to spend all your time mowing and weeding, so I bought 2 acres around the house. The keys and the deed are in there." That was 338, 339, and we're right at the end. 340, 341, and I'll have to pick that up when this is over. "Holy crap," Kathy said. "I'm not sure if it's angels crap, but if they do, it's probably holy." Larissa laughed. Kathy hugged her. "You almost made me cry. If you do, I'll take back my present. Daisy spent too long on the makeup for you to be messing this up. Fill those 5 bedrooms with kids. All 3 of us know it's not any fun being an only kid." Amos poked his head in through the door. "It's time. Now, ain't y'all lovely? I swear that y'all are just 3 like daughters to me." "Even me?" Larissa asked. "Yes, you," Amos said, and offered Kathy his arm. The bride wore an ivory brocade sheath with lace cowboy wedding boots and a circle of red roses in her hair. Her hand shook when Amos walked her through the door across the dance floor to give her hand to Travis in front of an arch covered with ivy and red brocade bows in front of pool tables. Was she doing the right thing? Would she regret her hasty decision? Would she even miss the honky tonk? She looked into Travis's eyes, and every single doubt disappeared. Her future was with him, not in the old weathered building with a bar and 2 jukeboxes. Dearly beloved, we're gathered here this fine afternoon to join Travis Henry and Kathy Odell in holy matrimony. The preacher began. After the vows were said and the rings exchanged, the preacher told Travis that he could kiss his bride. He led her to that very spot where he kissed her the very first time, and the long, hard kiss he put on her lips had everyone in the place whooping and clapping. "I love you," he said. "I love you back." "How long do we have to stay?" "Until Chigger's mama and Jessie say we can go." "Don't worry, darling, we got the rest of our lives together." "That's just barely long enough," he whispered. "But we'll make every minute count, won't we?" "Hell yeah," he grinned. The end. Oh my land, what a wonderful book. It had a moment of, is she going to make it through this kidnapping? Is she going to go back to Brad? Is he going to go to Alaska, leave her alone? And the way he just walked in that honky tonk on New Year's Eve and laid a kiss on her lips. Oh my land. What a heartthrob. And then the way he came back into her life after his moment of clarification. Wow. The book gets a 35, which makes it a must-read. The second in the series that I've given that to. We start the 3rd one tomorrow night, which is My Give-A-Damn's Busted. So I know that you all will be anxious to start that book. I'm actually on the hunt for the holiday book in that series. Hopefully I can find it so we can do, not only let me read it, but then give you guys a book review. But so far I haven't found it. So hopefully if I ever find it, y'all can help a girl out. Anyway, I'm going to go for the night, and I will probably see you tomorrow night. But it's rewarding to give rather than to receive. And I really hope that all of you remember that this holiday season. Anyway, I hope that you're keeping your social distance, you're wearing your mask, washing your hands. When you are not washing your hands, you're using your hand sanitizer. So, God bless each and every one of you. Love you. Stay safe. Stay well. Till tomorrow.